What's up, hockey fans? How's it going? Good to see you. David's work here with you for another episode of the Odd Man Rush, coming to you live on the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel and brought to you by Signs Broward and Fort Lauderdale. I'm David Zwart, as I said, from Local10.com. I cover the Panthers. Welcome to the show. My esteemed colleague, Manny Chang, is behind the scenes right now, pushing all the right buttons and making sure the show runs well. So what's up to Manny? And yeah, so right now, where are we? We're 20 games away from the end of the season. The finish line is in sight. And look, the Panthers right now are primed, poised. They are ready. Like no Panthers team ever before. This team is ready to make a run for the Stanley Cup. It's crazy to think about. It seems like hyperbole to really pump it up. But I mean, the reality is maybe Colorado in terms of favorites for the cup other than the Panthers. That's really it. The Panthers have got to be the favorite right now to come out of the East. The reason for this extra pump up that they've gotten recently was Bill Zito once again wheeling and dealing at the trade deadline. Obviously, he got an early start to it all. But when the dust settled, somehow this ridiculously good Panthers team is even better. And I'm looking like a team that's going to make a serious run at the Stanley Cup. So before we get into the deadline editions, I do just want to go over some of the latest updates from the team, as later today they will be starting their road trip in Montreal against the Canadiens, a quick 3-game swing. Pretty sure it's 3 games and 4 nights, if I'm not mistaken, as the Toronto and Ottawa's back-to-back. But it starts tonight in Montreal against the Habs. A team that really, since Marty St. Louis took over behind the bench, has been playing a lot better than they did for the entirety of the season beforehand. They're not losing games like 6-1 and 5-2 every night. There's some competitive hockey, so the Panthers are going to run into they're probably going to run into a tough challenge. I mean, the Bell Center is always a tough place to play, so it'll be a nice test with this new look Panthers team. News heading into the road trip. First and foremost, rookie sensation Anton Lundell is not traveling with the Panthers. Panthers interim head coach Andrew Brunette told me earlier yesterday that the reason he's not traveling is not because of the lower body injury he suffered that initially took him out of the lineup before the last road trip. Anton Lundell has got some kind of non-COVID virus, maybe it's the flu or something like that, that's really been lingering the last couple of days. Bruno was hopeful that Lundell was going to get a chance to practice when they practiced at the ice then the last couple of days this week, but unfortunately he did not. The illness kind of kept him under the weather. So instead of bringing him on all these flights and bringing him up to Canada where it's a lot colder, they're going to let him chill down here and recuperate, rest up, and hopefully be good to go when they get back next week. And I mean, look, really, as I kind of said earlier, the name of the game is playoffs, right? That's the concern. That's the focus right now. Let's get Lundell ready for the playoffs. I mean, we already know what happened with Aaron Ekblad, and we're just grateful that it was nothing serious and that Eki's going to be okay for the postseason. So let's just get there. You know what I mean? That's really what the focus is right now. So many years, and maybe Panthers fans are a little conditioned at this point to feel like the playoff chase is the end all be all, because that's really what it was for a long time. But no, right now, they're in the playoffs. We don't have to worry about that. Between where they are in the standings, the fact that they've got this nice chunky little 6-7 point lead in the division right now, the fact that the last 20 games on their schedule, the majority of those games were against non-playoff teams. The playoffs are pretty much a given at this point. It's just a matter of what are they going to do when they get there. So let Lundell rest up, let him get ready whenever he can pop back into the lineup and start getting his momentum towards the postseason. But really not a huge concern. Let's let him get right. Positive news on the injury front is that Patrick Hornquist and Ryan Lombard are both expected to play tonight in Montreal. They both skated on the 4th line during yesterday's practice at the ice then, with Noah Chari centering them. The previous day it had been Joe Thornton and Maxime Mammon on that line because it was Lombard and Hornquist's first practice back. However, yesterday they were both on that 4th line taking rushes, and Bruno said, assuming when he spoke to his medical guys after yesterday's practice all was well, We'll find out later at the morning skate today, but it looks like it's going to be Hornquist and Lombard back in the Panthers lineup and flanking Nolachari on that fourth line. So that's some really good news. Other good news tonight, we'll find out more again in a little while, but it seems as though Ben Sherratt is going to make his Panthers debut tonight against this former team, the Montreal Canadiens, perhaps skating on the top pairing, and that's the Mackenzie Weeder. Now, we did see in practice this week that Weeder had moved over to the right side, which is his natural side. He's a right-handed shot. He plays on the left because Aaron Ekblad is also a right-handed shot, and Ekblad plays the right, Weeder plays the left, and it's fine. Weeder does a good job, but it's still the right side is his natural side. I asked him, what is the difference? How easy is it for him to snap back in? And he basically said just because it's his natural side, it's easier for him, a little bit easier to control his gaps and to use his stick and get solid angles, especially when facing the boards. So, just the little things. And we'll see how big of a difference it plays. I mean, we saw Weeder played exceptionally well last year when Ekblad was out and he was paired up with Gus Forsling, who plays on the left side. So, again, we have to wait and see how things play out later today, but it looks like that's going to be how it plays. And I'm interested to see what that pairing of Weeder and Sherratt would look like, to be honest. Like, we know Forsling and Gudas are very solid together. They're comfortable together. You don't want to mess with that. And the third pairing, what we saw this week was obviously Brandon Montour, and then rotating in that other spot was Petteri Lindbaum and newcomer Robert Hagg. We'll see what happens there because Lucas Carlson had been skating next to Weeder. So really you've got three extra defensemen that are going to be out of the lineup. It's going to be Weeder and let's just say Weeder and Sherratt, Forsling and Gudas, and then in that last pairing, Montour. So you're really looking at one spot between Carlson, Lindbaum, and Hagg. And I would think maybe that Hagg would get a look early with his time with the Panthers. This is a guy who's great on the PK. Actually, I'm going to get into the three additions, Giroux, Sherratt, and Hagg in a minute before I get into all their details and all that cool stuff about the trades and how excited I am and how excited you should be. The third pairing, that's kind of how it's shaking out. And then looking at the goal crease, Sergei Bobrovsky, he did not play in any of the West Coast games that they played last week when they went to LA and San Jose and Vegas and Anaheim. He was under the weather. He was sick. He was practicing. He was warming up. He was on the bench. Now, in that first game in LA, he was on the bench and he took a puck to the face. He had to take, there were reported 17 stitches from that. Bruno told me that was not the reason he was being held out of those games in California. It was just that he was feeling under the weather. Perhaps, something was going through the locker room. Lindell sick, Bob sick, although, Bob was out west. So, maybe not. But yeah, either way, Bob practiced this week. He looked good. Bruno said as much after practice on Tuesday that he thought Bob was really good on Wednesday. He told me that Bob's going on the trip and he hasn't talked to, Rob Tallis and the goaltending guys to see what the plan is for starters, but it seems as though they'll be at least able to rotate however they feel they want to between Bob and Spencer Knight. Now, look, if Bob, for whatever reason, if he can't play, Spencer Knight was pretty spectacular on that road trip, picking up points in 3 out of 4 games, getting his first career shutout. Playing in some real hostile environments and just not looking shaking at all. The one game that he lost in regulation in Vegas, some fluky deflections, and that's probably as loud a building as you're going to see in the NHL right now. And he held his own. So either way, it looks like the Panthers, getting a little bit more stable in goal. You hope that all this time off will help Bob maybe get a little bit rejuvenated. We've seen his play while it's been the best of his 3 years in South Florida. I don't think that anybody is going to argue that point. I'm still not particularly comfortable with Bob as a playoff goaltender. It's just too inconsistent and there's too many, leaky goals. You've heard me say this ad nauseum at this point. So hopefully he can kind of, pick up his composure or whatever, rest up here at this time and, hit the ground running. I mean, we've seen how exceptional he can play. And he's done it a lot more this season than any other time with the Panthers. So, we'll just have to wait and see if he can bring it when the playoffs start. But like I said, 20 games to go. And, man, the questions that have to be answered are fun questions to be answered because this team's ready to roll, man. And I'm sure as you guys could not be more excited for that. All right, before I get into the deadline stuff, I do want to talk about our sponsor, which is Signs Broward of Fort Lauderdale. This is the #1 sign company in all of Broward County, and I really think there's no arguing that fact. They're locally owned and operated, which is always what you want to try to support, especially here in South Florida. And they specialize in custom indoor and outdoor signs, vehicle graphics, trade show displays, sign maintenance, and more. They have an amazingly talented and knowledgeable staff, and they're committed to bringing you full service, a one-stop shop for all your custom signs and graphics. Signs Broward offers one-on-one client consultations for you guys. They'll help you shape the exact designs, signs, graphics, whatever you're looking for. They will figure it out with you, and then they'll print it or manufacture your creation. They'll install them at your business, on your vehicle, wherever you need. This is one-stop shopping. Remember, Signs Broward also, if you're a business owner, you want to advertise for that, Signs Broward can help you with your window graphics, your interior office signing, custom flags and banners. They offer sign repair and maintenance as well. And also Signs Broward, obviously, they serve all of Broward County. Many of the signs that you see, like on Los Olos Boulevard or on Federal Highway, they were made and installed by Signs Broward. So for more information on Signs Broward, you can give them a call at 954-791-8685, or you can visit them online at signsbrowardfortlauderdale.com. Again, Signs Broward. Give them a look. Okay. Now, back to the trade deadline stuff. I brought out some poker chips as like a silly little prop here, wanting to somehow emphasize the fact that the Panthers are going all in. And as I'm sitting here with these poker chips, I realize that there's really, what am I supposed to do? Like throw them at the camera or, crack my laptop or something. So I guess I just want credit for the effort at this point. But the Panthers are basically taking their poker chips and shoving them to the middle and saying, we are all in. We're not worried about the future. Take our draft picks, all the draft picks. We don't want the draft picks. They're gone. Forget those picks. We're ready to win now. And I mean, really, there's no arguing that. Like they've done it, and Bill Zito's done it to an amazing effort to pull off some of the moves he's pulled off up until now, and to have this amazing Panthers team that they constructed all year, just humming along, top of the standings right now, in contention, I guess, for a President's Trophy. Certainly looking like they can come out of the East as the top seed, which, when you're a team that has Stanley Cup aspirations, having home ice in the Eastern Conference Final, not the worst thing, especially when you're a team like the Panthers that has played so well at FLA Live Arena. They are, without a doubt, one of the best home ice teams in the league. And a lot of that has to do with you guys making it a really fun and festive environment. And the players have said as much multiple times throughout the year how much they love the support at FLA Live Arena, how pumped up the fans get them. So I would expect that only to get bigger and louder crowds as we get towards the playoffs, because this is South Florida. And as the games get more important, people are going to get more excited and show up. And that's just kind of the way we roll down here. So yeah, already an amazing team, already at the top of the standings. Then Zito goes out, does his thing. Yeah, you know what? Give me a Claude Giroux. Give me the #1 forward that's available. You know what? Give me Ben Sherratt. Give me a guy who's played 56 playoff games in the last 4 years. Give me a leader. Oh, what's that? I'm the favorite to win the Stanley Cup now? Yeah, that's my basic reenactment of the Bill Zito story over the last few weeks, because it's so awesome. Look, I've been following this team since they were first created. I've been living in South Florida for basically my entire life. The only time I wasn't here when I was trying to have my own hockey career, which, obviously we know how that ended because I'm here with you. But no, I've followed this team from its inception up until right now. I've been privileged to cover it for the last decade or so. I've been on the beat for the last few years, and we've never seen this before. It is so cool to go out and, the big fish we'll talk about right away, and that's Claude Giroux. One of the best 200-foot players in the NHL. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame when he's all said and done. Just an elite playmaker. The Panthers get him from the Flyers for their first-round pick in 2024, their third-round pick in 2023, and Owen Tippett. And Philly retained 50% of Giroux's salary to give the Panthers a little bit of cap help on that end as well. And the Panthers got a fifth-round pick back and a pair of prospects. So, yeah, that's a pretty good deal. Nice, right? Like, damn. And I mean, look, Giroux's future is not in South Florida. There's really no path that you can see to see him sticking around here once he becomes a free agent when the season's over. However, he's here now. And just as Jumbo Joe Thornton did months before, made the conscious decision that going to the Florida Panthers right now is the best chance of winning the Stanley Cup. Okay, that's not me saying that. That's not somebody saying that on Hockey Night in Canada. Those are guys right now playing the game. Some of the best players to play the game over the last 2 decades, or in Thornton's case, 4 decades. Yeah, right? Pretty cool to think about. So the Panthers somehow, Zito swings this great haul for Giroux. And as I mentioned, an amazing 200-foot player, but one of the best face-off guys in the league. Now, you guys know the face-off circle is an area the Panthers have struggled this year. What is interesting, though, when looking at the face-off numbers league-wide, is some of the best teams in the league are towards the bottom on face-offs. Like Colorado's down there, Washington's down there. I get, perhaps the metric on that isn't as important as you think, because, sometimes you don't get possession, you steal it back. The Panthers are really good about doing that, especially in their own end. But still, when you have a guy who's a lockdown face-off guy who's going to win you huge, important draws in your own end or in the O-zone during the playoffs, when you can have a line with 2 great face-off artists in Sasha Barkov, who's very good at face-offs, and Claude Giroux, who is excellent at face-offs, I mean, it's just another tool in the toolbox, right? It's just another branch of greatness. And that top line, Barkov, Giroux, and Carter Hagg, which is how they've been practicing this week. Whew. I mean, when you think of Claude Giroux's playmaking ability, it's very Huberdeau-esque. The spinning passes, the vision behind his head, the ability to see passing lanes where maybe one isn't even there yet, to just watch the motion of just that hockey IQ element, that matrix vision. He's got that. So it's, sorry, I keep scratching my nose. It's itching me. It's bugging the shit out of me. I like this informal YouTube thing. It's very chill. I gotta lean into the chillness because my freaking nose is pissing me off. But yeah, elite hockey IQ. And I'm just excited to see that line and also see him on the power play. Giroux has been featured on the Panthers' top power play practices throughout the last week, along with, they had a 5-forward unit that they were running with Barkov, Giroux, Reinhart, Duclair, and why do I always forget the 5th one? Huberdeau. Forgive me. And Huberdeau. So that was the 5-man forward unit. And then they rotated in 1D. That was Weeder, and he took Duclair's spot. So either way, like a lot of firepower and still residual firepower left over to go on power play too, when you think of like Sam Bennett, Mason Marchment, Carter Verhaeghe. Patrick Hornqvist was also getting a look on the second power play. And then Brandon Montour. That's kind of been his jam for the last couple of years. Since he arrived at last year's trade deadline. So, yeah, and just kind of like wrapping up the thought on Claude Giroux, I don't know if he's ever been surrounded by this much talent. Like, he's been on some good teams in Philly. They went on that cup run when he was a young buck, and that crazy goal that nobody saw that Patrick Kane scored in Philly against Michael Leighton. It's craziness, right? But look, there's an opportunity here for these guys to do something special. So Claude Giroux decided this is what he wanted to do. He wanted to come to the Panthers. Let's see how it works. I mean, God, I'm just excited. There's so many reasons to be excited. And I just keep going back to what I said earlier about just like the unique position that the Panthers find themselves in. Because this is never Panther fans, ever. So just take a breath and just awesomeness. All right. Now let's talk about Ben Sherratt. The first trade that Zito made a few days before the deadline with Montreal. You could tell that this was a deal he really wanted to get done just because of the price they paid for Sherratt, a 2023 first-round pick, a fourth-round pick this year in 2022, and Ty Smilanic, pretty highly regarded prospect that the Panthers drafted. Oh God, totally escaping me what year they drafted him, whether it was 20 or 21. But regardless, in Ben Sherratt, Montreal retained 50% of the salary. So again, right there, a good move. But this is a team in the Panthers that has been kind of coveting left shooting D for a while now. It's been no secret that they've been looking to add a couple of solid guys on the left side. So they bring in Ben Sherratt, who, as I mentioned, he's got like 56 games of playoff experience in the last 4 years. He was instrumental for Montreal last season. Thank you, Manny. I love it. Putting up all the stats for you guys. He's had a rough year, but everybody in Montreal has had a rough year, and he's only recently kind of had the restraints taken off him and had the ability to use his playmaking ability a little bit more, to control the puck a little bit more, to not basically be a parking cone in his own end. It's a different systems, different situation, and just the fact that the experience that this guy has, really not worried. I think he's going to fit in really well, especially in the room. This is a guy who's been loved basically everywhere he's gone in his career. He's just a fun, cool guy. He's not afraid to laugh at himself. Should fit in very nicely with this Panthers dressing room. One thing about Sherratt you're going to notice is you're going to see a lot of him. He eats up minutes. That's why he's going to probably start out on that Mackenzie Weegar pairing. He can play 20, 25 minutes, and it's no big deal. He's got a pretty heavy shot. He's a guy who blocks a lot of shots, which is kind of something that he has in common with Robert Hagg, who we're going to talk about in a minute here. But yeah, ultimately with Ben Sherratt, I think just by virtue of you want to keep pairings together that have been working together, I would expect him to get started with Weeder there, as I've said, but just a really solid ad. And this is a guy that teams were looking for. Montreal was taking a lot of calls on Ben Sherratt. And Zito pulling the trigger early is just kind of indicative of how much they wanted to make sure that they acquired this specific guy. And look, at the end of the day, in Zito, we trust. Like, he knows what he's doing. I've said it from the beginning. These guys had his finger on the pulse of the team since he walked through the door, since he flipped Mike Matheson and got Patrick Hornquist back, and really hasn't looked back since. So, yeah, I'm good with that. All right, finally, before we wrap it up, I want to talk a little bit about Robert Hagg. I've seen him practice a couple of times this week. I saw him yesterday and Tuesday in Coral Springs. Seems like he's a really good skater. When I watch Gus Forsling, it's something that just always jumps out at me, whether it's practice or game, is what an amazing skater is. And I kind of got similar vibes watching Hagg move around the rink. Another left shooting D. Again, can't have enough guys that shoot lefty, apparently. This is a guy who, when you talk about Sherratt as a shot blocker, Hagg is a guy who he really seems to take pride in his ability to be a second goalie on the ice, if you will. He's known for his shot blocking ability. And I think it'll be a great, especially come playoff time. And another thing that he's been known to do throughout his career, he's a good penalty killer. He's really smart in his own end. He knows how to clear passing lanes. He doesn't get lost and lose assignments. A smart defenseman. Again, something that'll really come in handy here as you get into the playoffs. Probably more of like, he'll be one of the rotational guys that the Panthers, I expect them to move in. I mean, like, unless, somebody gets on a hot streak and they just roll with six. Once Ekblad is back, you would think it's Weeder, Ekblad, Forsling, Gudis, Montour, Sherratt, and then basically, you've got this embarrassment of riches on guys on the outside, whether it's Carlson, whether it's Lindbaum, whether it's Hagg, that you can pop in at any time. And really, you suddenly on the back end have the kind of depth and security that you've had with the forwards, where you've got, your top heavy talent. But if somebody goes down, you can bump someone up easily. You can fill someone in the bottom and not skip a beat. And that's what we've seen at the forward unit throughout the season. And really, that's what we're seeing now with the moves that were made on the back line. Once Ekblad is back, they're going to be pretty stacked, which means that not only is this Panthers team got a roster that's full of talent and that's primed for a playoff push, but they can handle the bumps and bruises that have kind of come along while they're going on their way. So yeah, it's just I realize I'm just pumping you up full of positivity. The worst thing that I told you today is Anton Lindell, and I mean, look, he's in a however long he's out, whether it's he's out for this road trip or whether it's 2 weeks, he'll be okay for the playoffs, which just bumps that depth down in the forwards even more. Because right now you got Luosterainen centering the third line, you got Achari centering the fourth line. Lundell comes back, they're going back to that Marchment, Lundell, Reinhart line. Like that top nine, once Lundell is back, that top nine is like Olympic, like all-star. Like that, it's crazy good. Crazy good. Just taking a minute, breathing it in. And then suddenly on that fourth line is going to have to find spots for Ryan Lomberg, Eetu Luosterainen, Patrick Hornquist, Noah Chari. Man. Maxi Mammon is just trying to go through the list in my head. And you got to get Jumbo Joe out there for at least a couple of games during the playoffs, right? Embarrassment of riches. Let's just hope when the playoffs come, those riches get spent wisely. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I just keep going back to that one point: win a playoff round. You haven't won a playoff round since 1996. I know that this team is a cup favorite. They should be winning rounds and making noise into the month of June, but at least for me, we got to get over that first bar has to be hit, and that first bar is win a playoff round, because you're going to end up playing Tampa or Toronto or Washington or Boston. I mean, however it ends up playing out, you're going to end up playing one of those teams. Panthers can beat any of them. Just looking at the way they played this year, looking at how good they are, how dominant they are, kind of imposing their will. And when this team turns it on, I mean, they've lost a couple, this Seattle here, with against Ottawa there, and they've had some losses to non-playoff teams that you kind of roll your eyes. The big games where they have to show up for, they've shown up every time. When the playoffs start, the focus that these guys are going to snap into, I'm excited to see it happen. And it's going to be a cool experience, and I hope we all get to kind of ride through it together. So, on that note, I think I'm going to wrap up this episode of the Odd Man Rush. Once again, brought to you by Signs Broward and Fort Lauderdale. Thank you to them for being a great sponsor of the show. Thank you also to my amazing producer, Manny Chang, working behind the scenes, doing everything right, making me look way better than I actually am. So thank you so much to that. And yes, as the graphic says, if you don't already, please subscribe to the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Turn on those notifications. There's so much good stuff. And I mean, just look at what's been going on the last couple of days with all the amazing Dolphin news and the coverage that they've been putting forth with that. In addition to the always awesome Miami Heat coverage, you've got Miami Hurricanes, you got Inter Miami. They've got everything covered. And hey, baseball season starting, right? Good stuff there. So again, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you to Manny. Thank you to Signs Broward. Thank you to 5 Reasons for hosting. Thank you to everybody commenting, for watching, tweeting. It is much appreciated. So until next time, I am David Zwark. I hope you all have a great week, and I hope the Panthers have a great road trip. See ya.